Hi traders, welcome to wrap up of Wednesday, November 9th. So before we start today, had a major sell-off. The market dropped about 20-30 points as soon as the European markets opened, which was about about 4 to 6 hours before the US cash market opened. So yesterday wrap up actually talked about how we're in a pretty good uptrend, and today was likely to be an up day as well, unless we got some major sort of sellers, and that's exactly what happened. A lot of sellers came in, so I mean, if they're around, you can't really ignore those sellers. So even though we've been in an uptrend, you pretty much have to start today with a point of view that the market would continue to sell off. So I guess that's the kind of perception I had to start with. We opened, bounced around a bit at the start here, and then started to push down. This particular PowerPoint here is normally a good one to hold up the markets if the sellers were really around and wanted to go on with it. I ended up pushing through that and then bouncing off the second one. So that's a tough area to sell, because at this stage it looked like it might want to start pushing up, but then it did start to sell off again. Push through this PowerPoint and then pop back up here and bounce really well off that PowerPoint here. So I thought this area here, an early fade, also in all those areas, was a good area. Just around here too on the 5-minute charts, the moving averages were pointing down. Also the predictive is just starting to cross down, but certainly the market action was showing on the downside. So this was a PowerPoint that was always going to struggle to hold up the market and push down, especially with those sellers around in the pre-market. Then from there, the market just turned around on the spot and pushed up really quickly. Got straight back to its cash highs within a couple of PowerPoints. Quite an unusual movement. I guess the market's very jumpy at the moment. There's a lot of announcements, a lot of stuff happening in Greece and a few things like that. So the market had made quite an erratic move there, then pulled back. And at this kind of stage, I mean, all the buyers were around on the other indices as well. So this particular PowerPoint is one to consider, to look closely at. Very hard to get on it. Only just touched it, but definitely a pullback area where the buyers had a chance to go on with it. And then from there you can see they've pushed up. And from there, continue to push up. It's bounced between PowerPoints for a while, so almost like a lunchtime situation. I think the market's kind of got up, starting to make highs, and all of a sudden started to reconsider a few things. Seems though that there is a lot of sellers, and it was unsure and didn't really want to go up. Around this area here, we also were getting a bit of a 5-minute fade set up, so a bit of a buy indication, but weren't really looking to buy here. It had its opportunities to keep going up, but in the end the market kept pushing it back down. Just the buyers just never really had any power or any opportunity to get in. And from there you can see it started to, once it's bounced around a bit, then it's pushed through this power point here, and it looked like the sellers were starting to come back into play. So this is after lunchtime now. Popped up to this particular power point here. This was a 5-minute fade as well, so I would have taken this one as a sell opportunity. I mean, at the time, bit of a difficult one to take. Definitely an opportunity for the sellers to come in, but was just unsure. No one was really showing like they had any control. You can see the market movement. I mean, I saw it as a bit as a 50-50 area. It wasn't until it actually popped up here and then pushed down, and we got a lot of seller pressure here, that definitely thought the sellers were going to come in strong, especially with that pre-market bias that we have. So this PowerPoint, or even this PowerPoint here, a little bit extended, not necessarily the best one to take, but I thought these were the opportunities. And also because just in this area here too, we had the moving average pointing down, and also the predictive crossing down to the sell side. So this area here was an area to look like where the sellers really wanted to come in, and that's exactly what's happened. It's pushed down, and basically it's from this point up here, it's pushed down 20 points, 15, 20 points really quite quickly. The market's had some occasional pullbacks, but you can see nothing major there. It's just consistently just pushing through PowerPoint after PowerPoint. I mean, that's a big fall. Unless you get on the trend up earlier, it's very hard then to take advantage of it, because I guess all through these areas, even though it looks good in hindsight, you're just wondering, when are the sellers going to end? Because you've got to remember, when people are selling like this, eventually they're going to have to get out of their position, and when they start getting out of the position, you're going to start in a minute to get out of those positions. They've got to buy, and that's when you're going to start to see some buyers come in. So after an extended market like this, they're going to get exhausted as people end their positions, and at some stage you're going to get a bounce back. So that's why, if you've missed this downtrend, it's best not to get in. because you just never know when it's going to be too late, I suppose. And then from there you can see it's eventually picked a point where it's wanted to turn back around and start to head back up, just kind of bouncing between power points and having a bit of a pullback to where we are now, almost at the close of the day, where it's just starting to head back towards its lows. But overall, quite an action-filled day. So bringing up the 5-minute chart, there's only the one official opportunity as far as the 5-minute, and that was this one here. So that was the one I talked about before. So it was actually a fade up here, so where you'd actually sell at this particular area. So you can see not a bad area to sell from in hindsight. This particular signal but got stopped out both ways, and like I said, the entry wasn't particularly good. When it came up, it was a bit of a 50-50 area. A much better area was just to wait a little bit, and once the predictive crossed down here, so you can see the moving average is pointing down. It's not actually officially underneath yet, so not an official signal, but you can see it's pushing down, and the predictive's crossing down as well. So you got all the seller pressure happening with you, and as long as you get a power fade entry round down in this area here, it's a good area to sell off and go for. Also, as far as 5 minutes goes, I thought another small opportunity was back here, considering that the sellers were around. The moving average was pointing down, had a bit of a pullback, and looked to just catch this pullback. So this pullback lined up with that power point on the 1 minute chart. So a bit of a opportunity for a power point or an early power fade in this area as well. So that area there and this area here, I thought they were the two areas, and they both kept in line with the seller's bias, which came from that pre-market sell-off. So interesting day today. Be interesting to see what happens through the pre-market, and then see what happens tomorrow when we approach Thursday. Keeping in mind too, also I think Bernanke is speaking, so tomorrow should be action-packed as well. Alright, that's the wrap-up.